It all started with my parents' anniversary celebration, 35 years of what everyone called a perfect marriage. The kind of event people dress up for, smile for, and pretend everything inside that big house isn't cracked down the middle. I remember standing in front of the mirror that night, adjusting this same old navy blue dress I'd worn to every family function. It wasn't fancy, but it was neat. When I walked out of my apartment, I told myself I'd keep my head down, smile for the photos, and leave before midnight. But deep down, I knew it wasn't going to be that easy. My parents' house was lit up like a wedding venue, white fairy lights, expensive catering, a live jazz band playing on the patio. And there she was, my sister Lila, in a sparkling gold dress that could probably pay my rent for 6 months. She twirled in the center of attention like she always did. People loved her. They always had. "You made it!" Mom exclaimed, though her tone was more surprised than happy. "I was beginning to think you wouldn't show up. Wouldn't miss it," I lied, forcing a smile. Dad gave me a brief nod before turning back to his guests. He was never one for hugs, at least not with me. "Can you help Lila with the slideshow?" Mom asked quickly, like I'd been invited just to handle logistics. "She's got too much going on." Of course she did. "Sure," I said, heading inside to find her. Lila was sitting on the couch with a glass of champagne, laughing with her friends. "Hey," I began. "Mom said you needed help with the slideshow." She looked up, her eyes scanning me like she was checking for something to mock. "Oh, yeah," she said, handing me her laptop without looking away from her conversation. "It's mostly done, just fix the transitions and add the song." I glanced at the clock. Guests were arriving by the dozen. "You realize this event starts in 30 minutes? "You're fast," she said with a shrug. "You've always been good at that techie stuff?" Translation: "Do it for me because you always do." I wanted to snap back, to say I wasn't her unpaid assistant anymore, but instead, I carried the laptop to the study and got to work. Every photo in the slideshow was of them, Mom, Dad, and Lila. Vacations, birthdays, family dinners. I kept scrolling, waiting for one picture of me. There was one, a blurry shot from a high school graduation where I was half cut off. I stared at it for a long moment before deleting it. If they were going to erase me, I might as well make it complete. When the slideshow played later that night, everyone clapped and cheered. Lila took a bow. "You did such a good job," Mom told her, completely unaware or uninterested that I'd been the one behind the laptop. I clinked my glass with theirs and smiled, pretending it didn't sting. But the truth burned. Every cheer, every toast, every fake compliment, it all pressed down like a weight I'd carried since childhood. I was the quiet one, the dependable one, the one who fixed things, not the one people noticed. When dinner started, I found my seat at the far end of the table. Lila sat next to Mom and Dad, of course, surrounded by family friends and their perfect laughter. I sat next to Uncle Mark, who was already half drunk. "Didn't you used to be the one who played piano?" He slurred, squinting at me. "What happened to that?" I smiled tightly. "Life happened. Shame," he said. "Lila was never any good, but she looked the part, huh?" He chuckled like that was a compliment. The evening dragged on with speeches and songs. When it was time to cut the cake, Lila made sure she stood center stage. Mom and Dad beamed. I stayed behind the camera, capturing the moment no one would ever frame. Afterward, when I went to grab my coat, I overheard Mom talking to one of her friends. "We're so proud of both our girls," she said, then laughed softly. "Though one of them could try a little harder to be." Social, I froze. Her words echoed louder than the music. I wanted to walk out right then, but something inside me stopped. Instead, I walked back into the hall and picked up a glass of wine. "To my parents," Lila announced suddenly, tapping her glass. "To the best example of love anyone could ask for." Everyone clapped. I joined in mechanically. But when her eyes met mine across the room, she smirked. It was small, almost unnoticeable, but I knew that look. It was the same one she'd given me our entire lives whenever she won something by stepping on me to get it. That night, I drove home in silence, headlights cutting through the darkness. Every memory of being the overlooked daughter replayed in my head like the slideshow I'd made, except mine wasn't picture perfect. I remembered the science fair in 6th grade. When I won first place, but Dad couldn't come because Leela had a ballet recital. The college acceptance letter I read alone in my room. The countless times I'd done everything right only to be told it wasn't the same as what Lila did. But that night, I made a quiet promise to myself. The next time they saw me, I wouldn't be standing in the shadows anymore. I'd build a life they couldn't ignore, a success so undeniable that even they would have to see me. What I didn't know then was that fate had a strange way of keeping receipts. Because one day, that golden family image they loved so much, I'd be the one to shatter it. The morning after the anniversary party, I woke up with that same heavy feeling in my chest, the kind that doesn't fade overnight. My phone buzzed nonstop with photos from the event. Lila had already posted an album titled Family Love 35 Years Strong. Every picture was perfect. Her hand on Mom's shoulder, Dad laughing mid-toast, the cake cutting, the fairy lights twinkling behind them. It looked like a magazine spread. There wasn't a single photo of me. Not one. I stared at my screen for a long time before turning it off. That was the exact moment something inside me clicked. I'd spent years waiting for validation that was never coming. And I realized maybe it wasn't about proving myself to them anymore. It was about proving I didn't need them. I got up, made coffee, and opened my laptop. I'd been working as a junior marketing associate for 2 years. Good pay, stable hours, but invisible, just like at home. That morning, I decided I was done being invisible anywhere. I spent the next few weeks quietly reworking my portfolio, staying late at the office, and taking on every project no one else wanted. My boss noticed. "You're running yourself hard," she said one night, as I handed in another presentation. "You gunning for my job?" I smiled. "Not yet. But maybe one day." She laughed. "But I meant it." Within 3 months, my name started showing up in emails that used to go straight to my boss. "Let her take the lead," the department head said one morning. "She's got ideas." And I did. I've pitched campaigns that broke the company's old routine, ones that took risks. Some failed, but one hit big. A cosmetics rebrand that went viral for its authenticity. I'll never forget the moment the numbers came in. My campaign reached 1 million impressions in 48 hours. I sat there staring at the dashboard, hands trembling. My boss clapped me on the shoulder. "You did it, kid," she said. "You just made this company relevant again." That night, for the first time in years, I went out to celebrate alone. I ordered a glass of wine and toasted quietly to myself. Nobody else needed to be there. 2 months later, I got promoted to senior brand strategist. It came with a salary that made my old life feel like another lifetime. The same day I signed the papers, I got a text from Mom. "Family brunch on Sunday. Be there, okay? Lila S. bringing her fiancé." I didn't reply right away. A year ago, I would have rearranged my schedule. But that version of me was gone. When Sunday came, I still went, but not to impress anyone. I went because I wanted to see if they'd notice the difference. The moment I walked in, Mom's jaw actually dropped. I'd bought myself a tailored suit and a new haircut. Simple, clean, powerful. "Wow," she said. "Someone looks professional." I smiled. I just got promoted. Dad blinked, almost surprised. "Really? That's good." Lila hugged me, her perfume so thick it made my eyes water. "Oh, that's cute. What do you do again?" I could tell she didn't actually care. "Marketing," I said simply. "I lead campaigns now." She laughed lightly. "Oh, like ads and stuff. Fun." Mom chimed in. "You should give Lila some tips. She's been trying to grow her online store." Course she was. Lila sold overpriced wellness kits, essential oils, and affirmation cards, and posted pictures of herself meditating in Bali while Dad paid her rent. I smiled politely. "Sure, I can take a look sometime." That brunch was the same pattern as always. Lila talking about herself, Mom and Dad glowing, me quietly sipping coffee. But this time, it didn't sting. Because I wasn't sitting there seeking approval. I was observing, seeing their dynamic for what it was. They weren't bad people, just shallow. They measured love and attention, and I'd stopped playing their game. After brunch, Lila's fiance, Andrew, pulled me aside. "Hey," he said, glancing around. "You're the one who did that viral campaign, right?" My eyes widened. "You've seen it?" "Everyone in my office has," he said. "Honestly, it's genius." For the first time, I smiled not out of politeness, but pride. "Thanks. You should talk about it at dinner," he added. "You deserve the credit." But I didn't. Not because I was humble, but because I wanted my silence to speak louder. The following months, my career exploded. My company sent me to New York, London, Tokyo. I met people who saw me, respected me, valued me. I started consulting on the side, saving money, investing smartly. Every deposit into my account felt like another brick in the wall between me and the people who once made me feel small. And then, one day, it came full circle. Mom called, her tone unusually soft. "Sweetheart, we're planning a small celebration. For Lila's wedding, she wants you to help coordinate like you used to." I stared at my screen. "Like I used to?" "Sorry, Mom," I said. "I'll be attending as a guest this time." She paused. "Of course, dear. I just thought you'd want to feel included." I almost laughed. Cluded. That word had always been her weapon, disguised as kindness. I ended the call politely, then booked my own flight and hotel because I wasn't staying in their house anymore. I didn't tell her that I'd just bought my first condo, a place entirely my own, paid for it with money they didn't even know I made. The night before the wedding, I stood by the window, looking out at the city lights. For the first time, I wasn't dreading a family event. I was curious. Because this time, I wasn't going as the forgotten daughter. I was going as the woman they'd underestimated. And deep down, I had no idea that the wedding would become the stage for the most poetic revenge I could have ever imagined. The morning of Leela's wedding arrived with golden sunlight spilling through the hotel curtains. My dress hung neatly by the window, a deep emerald gown, elegant but not loud. I wanted to look powerful, not desperate for attention. As I zipped it up and looked at myself in the mirror, I realized something. I finally liked the person staring back. Not because of the dress or the makeup, but because she looked free. When I arrived at the venue, a vineyard surrounded by rolling hills and white rosette was already buzzing with people. Lila had gone all out, of course. Everything screamed luxury. Crystal chandeliers in the outdoor tent. Imported flowers. A 4-tier cake that probably cost more than my first car. The wedding planner was practically sprinting from table to table. "You must be the sister," she said breathlessly. "Lila said you'd know where things go." I smiled tightly. "I'm just a guest today." She blinked, clearly confused. "Oh, okay. I'll ask someone else then." The words felt good. Really good. As I walked through the crowd, I saw my parents surrounded by relatives, beaming as they introduced themselves as the bride's parents. No mention of me. I poured myself a glass of champagne and watched from a distance. The familiar ache returning, but this time it didn't consume me. It just reminded me why I was done chasing their approval. The ceremony began soon after. Lila walked down the aisle like a movie star, her dress glittering under the afternoon sun. Everyone gasped, phones flashing. I clapped politely, but my mind drifted elsewhere toward everything she'd taken for granted. Everything I'd worked for alone. The vows were sweet, rehearsed to perfection. Andrew looked genuinely in love, and for that, I respected him. When it ended, the guests cheered and the reception began. That's when things got interesting. As people mingled and music played, I found myself at the bar sipping wine when Andrew approached. "Hey," he said, smiling warmly. "I wanted to thank you for being here. It means a lot to Lila." "Of course," I replied. "She looks happy." "She is," he said. "Though I have to admit I was surprised when I found out you were her sister." "You're different." "Different how?" I asked. "Grounded," he said simply. "You listen when people talk. Lila's more performative." I laughed softly. "That's one word for it." He hesitated, then lowered his voice. "Can I tell you something weird?" I nodded. "When I first met your family, your mom showed me photos, hundreds of them. But you weren't in any? I thought maybe you were adopted or something. The words hit me like a quiet slap, but instead of anger, I felt a strange calm. No, I said. Just edit it out. He frowned, clearly uncomfortable. That's messed up. It's normal for them, I replied, finishing my drink. But not for me anymore. He gave a small, knowing nod. Good, you deserve better. Then he walked away, leaving me with a thought I couldn't shake. Someone finally saw it. Not because I told them, not because I complained, but because the truth was that obvious. As dinner began, the host announced the speeches. Dad went first, of course. He talked about how proud he was of Leela, how she'd always been such a bright light in our family. Then Mom followed, crying on cue, talking about her perfect daughters, but somehow only telling stories about one of them. People clapped. I stayed silent. Then Lila stood up for her speech. I want to thank my family, she said, glowing under the fairy lights. Especially Mom and Dad for always believing in me. She paused. And my sister for always being there when I needed her. The crowd turned toward me, some smiling, expecting me to wave. I just raised my glass, expression unreadable, because I knew what was coming next. Lila smiled wider. Actually, she continued, my sister helped with this surprise. Well, she doesn't know it yet, but she's part of it. The lights dimmed. A video started playing on the big projector screen. At first, it looked like another family montage, photos, laughter, vacations. But then suddenly it switched to clips of Leela's so-called wellness brand. Except these weren't her official posts. These were behind-the-scenes clips her yelling at employees, mocking customers, bragging about overcharging people, even admitting on camera that she didn't believe in any of this spiritual crap. Gasps filled the tent. People turned toward her in shock. What the? She stammered, eyes wide. That's not someone hacked. But the video kept playing. Then came the final image. Her company's bank statements and fake testimonials, proof of fraud. The audience went silent. I sat perfectly still, my face calm, but inside my heart was pounding. I hadn't planned to expose her here. I'd sent the evidence to an influencer friend weeks ago, just to hold her accountable. But apparently, that friend had timed it perfectly. Lila's fiancé stood frozen, staring at the screen. Lila, he said slowly, is this real? No, it's fake. It's all fake. She cried. But her voice cracked, and everyone knew. Within minutes, whispers turned to murmurs. Murmurs into chaos. Her investors, seated at the front table, stood and walked out. The photographer stopped taking pictures. Even Mom's smile collapsed. Turn it off. Dad shouted. But the damage was already done. I sat back sipping my champagne as the screen went black. Lila ran off crying, mascara streaking down her face. The guests shifted uncomfortably, unsure what to do next. Then Mom turned to me, eyes blazing. Did you do this? She hissed. I looked at her calmly. No, I said truthfully, but I'm not sorry it happened. She glared at me, trembling with rage. You've always been jealous. No, Mom, I interrupted softly. I just stopped pretending. And with that, I stood up, placed my glass down, and walked out into the night air. Behind me, the music had stopped. The laughter had died. For once, it wasn't my silence filling the space, it was theirs. The stars above shimmered like they were clapping just for me. The night air felt colder than it should have. The sound of voices from the vineyard faded behind me, replaced by crickets and the faint hum of the generator powering the fairy lights. My heels sank slightly into the dirt path as I walked toward the parking lot. Each step heavier but lighter tiff. That makes sense? I didn't plan the chaos back there, not exactly. But for once, the truth had shown itself without me having to scream it. And it was loud enough for everyone to hear. When I reached my car, I sat inside for a long time before starting the engine. My phone buzzed, endlessly texts, missed calls, even notifications from social media. The wedding had gone viral faster than the bouquet could hit the ground. A guest had filmed the entire meltdown, and within an hour, it was online. Bride exposed at her own wedding, One caption read, "The comment sections were brutal. Half the people were gossiping, the other half applauding karma. I didn't comment, didn't even scroll. I just drove home in silence, headlights cutting through the dark like a blade. By the time I got home, it was almost midnight. My dress still smelled like champagne and tension. I poured myself a glass of water, sat at the kitchen counter, and stared at my reflection in the dark window. For the first time, there wasn't a trace of guilt in my chest, just peace. I hadn't ruined her wedding. She'd built her empire on lies, and I'd simply stopped holding up the illusion. The next morning, my phone was still buzzing. 52 missed calls. 27 messages. I ignored them all until one came through from Dad. "We need to talk now." I didn't reply. 10 minutes later, there was a knock at my door. I didn't have to look to know who it was. When I opened it, my parents stood there, faces pale and drawn. Lila wasn't with them. Mom looked like she hadn't slept. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. "Are you happy?" Mom hissed. "Do you feel good about yourself?" "Should I?" I asked quietly. "You humiliated your sister in front of everyone." She snapped. "No," I said. "She did that herself. You could have stopped it." "Why would I?" "You didn't stop her when she humiliated me. Let's shut her up." Dad stepped forward, his voice low but firm. "You've made your point. Now undo it." I actually laughed. "Undo what?" "The truth. You think you're better than her?" Mom spat. "No," I said. "I just finally stopped pretending we're the same." Dad rubbed his forehead. "Do you know what this has done to our family's reputation?" "You mean her reputation?" I corrected. "Your precious golden child finally got caught, and now you're realizing what it's like to stand in my shoes." Mom glared at me like she didn't even recognize me. "After everything we've done for you, everything I've done for you," I snapped back. "You want to talk about the bills I paid? The mortgage I saved? The way I covered for your mistakes for years? No, let's not rewrite history again. I didn't destroy this family. You did when you decided love was conditional." They both stared at me, speechless. For once, I didn't fill the silence. I just stood there, calm, grounded. "If you came here to ask me to fix this," I said finally, "you're at the wrong door." I started to close it, but Mom's hand shot out. "She's having a breakdown," she said desperately. "She hasn't eaten, she's crying nonstop. Please, just talk to her." "Did she talk to me before standing there smiling while you erased me in front of 50 people? I asked, "Did either of you?" Mom's lips trembled, but no words came. I looked between them and felt something I didn't expect: pity. "You know," I said softly, "I spent half my life waiting for you to see me. But maybe I was the blind one, thinking you ever would." Then I closed the door. The sound echoed through the hallway, final and quiet. The next few weeks were oddly peaceful. I went to work, came home, cooked for myself. No late-night phone calls about emergencies. No guilt texts asking for money. Just silence, the good kind. Occasionally, I'd hear updates through relatives. Lila's brand collapsed completely. Sponsors pulled out, clients demanded refunds, and her business account got frozen under investigation. Andrew called off the marriage a week later. Apparently, he'd seen enough. Mom tried to defend her online, but the internet doesn't care about family loyalty. It only cares about receipts, and there were plenty. One afternoon, my cousin sent me a photo. It was my parents' house, well, former house. The for sale sign stood on the lawn like a white flag. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt free. They had chosen their narrative years ago, and now they were living with it. I didn't need revenge anymore. I had Pizan that was worth more than anything. About a month later, I got one final message from Leela. It was long, messy, full of excuses and half apologies. I didn't know it would go that far. I was just trying to make Mom proud. "I know you hate me, but I miss you. Please, can we talk?" I read it 3 times before replying. "I don't hate you. I just finally stopped letting you hurt me." Then I hit send and blocked her number. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise, brewed my coffee, and watched the sky turn from gray to gold. For once, I didn't check my phone. I didn't worry about who needed me or what crisis I had to fix. It was quiet, and the quiet felt like home. People always say family is forever, but I've learned that's not always true. Family isn't blood, it's respect. It's effort. It's showing up when no one's watching. My parents and Lila made their choices, and I made mine. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done. Maybe someday they'll understand what that means. But even if they don't, I'll be fine. Because finally, after all those years of being erased, I didn't just lift a finger. I lifted the weight of an entire family and then I let it go.